help you face your fears, please welcome sophomore Aarjav Joshi.
I've always been a fearful, worried child. Ever since I was young, in elementary school, I peed my pants out while reciting a prayer amongst naive children. But more recently, I had to stop watching Stranger Things because I feared that the monster would climb through the laptop screen and snatch my soul. But these experiences prompted me to think, what is fear, and why do I let it dictate my life? Fear may be comprised of merely 4 letters, but it cannot be limited to an emotion. Because its interpretation can be approached from a countless number of directions. Because we make countless definitions for the same common, yet commonly misunderstood word. It is the inherent nature of fear that gives it the ability to transform through limitless mediums, based on your age, your situation, or your background. A nightmare that terrorizes a child's sleep may seem foolish to an adult whose most pressing worry is his or her interview with the company's CFO tomorrow. Huffington Post says, "Fear is a powerful and complex emotion." Wow, how eloquently brilliant. This definition is obviously inadequate, as is with many other Huffington Post articles. So let's try a different definition. Psychology Today bluntly states that fear is a vital response to physical and emotional danger. Now, the fundamental misunderstanding with this seemingly sufficient definition is that fear cannot be limited to an emotion or psychological response that is triggered by the interplay of various neurological processes and hormones. Fear is a verb. It's an action rather than a reaction. Because by labeling it as a reaction, we're implying that it can be involuntarily triggered, which is not true. According to the National Health Service, the common symptoms of fear that we experience because of the fight or flight response include trembling, difficulty breathing, or rapid heartbeat. And these are indeed responses, but they're responses to the deliberate action of fear. Now, this perplexing concept can be comprehended through a glimpse at several fears that majority of humans face. For example, take the action that I'm doing right now. No, it is not putting others to sleep or hypnosis. It's public speaking. Why is it that the act of expressing our emotions and knowledge to a crowd of eager listeners naggingly troubling for us, even though we're elevated by a platform? Public speaking is not life-threatening or dangerous, and it doesn't give us any physical pain. Well, depending on the size of your heels. That's a different story. So, because according to the Washington Post, approximately 25.3% of Americans have the phobia of public speaking, which allows me to safely assume that about a quarter of you in this room feel the same way. And because public speaking doesn't give you any physical pain, it takes us to the second clause of Psychology Today's definition, which is that it incites some sort of emotional pain. And I ask you, why do you feel emotional pain from public speaking? Let me tell you why. Your apprehension towards public speaking is defined by 2 and only 2 primary fears: the fear of losing control and the fear of isolation. When you're giving a presentation, there's the fear of the loss of control over the situation. And it might be that you stammer while speaking, or you forget portions of your speech, or you see that the audience is distracted. And these are all examples of how the fear of losing control may impact us. Personally, I experienced it when I'm making a first impression with others. I'm very timid, and so I kind of restrict myself so that I don't lose control of my filter and compulsively blurt out something that I will instantly regret. This has hindered me from making impactful first impressions and heart-to-heart conversations. So now let's look at the second primary fear, the fear of isolation. Judging or others' perceptions of us is the most common example. When we constantly entertain the thought that we are the subject of others' criticisms, we develop what is known in psychology as an imaginary audience. And we constantly entertain the thought that our accomplishments and triumphs should be overlooked. We have to focus on our actions that others may seem as unsatisfactory. And what this results in is an intangible but existing relationship between the individual and society, a victim-attacker relationship similar to what our primitive ancestors faced when they were running away from woolly mammoths. I experienced this through singing. I was in a group singing concert, and when we were all going through our respective solos, it slowly came to my turn. And when it came to my turn, I completely blanked out and panicked, for fear that no matter what I produced, it would not be satisfactory compared to the previous singers or parents of the talented children. So, I completely lost my musicality, my clarity, and my rhythm, and I quietly blurted and muttered some notes into the mic. Now, having understood the presence of the two primary fears, we can explore the relationship between the two and the multitude of phobias that we all experience on a daily basis. Because every phobia that we experience is nothing but an application of those two primary fears. It's an attempt to give a shape or form upon them, to perceive them in a practical manner rather than in their inherent abstract form. For example, take public speaking. Public speaking is not an original fear. It's an application of the fears of losing control and isolation through the medium of talking in front of a large crowd. Now, logically, this allows us to conclude that fear dominates our lives. It is in fact one of the most powerful universal forces, and it dictates every action, as if fear is a puppet master. Our minds are strings, and we are just mere puppets. Because every action that we take is prompted by whether or not we are afraid of the consequence or we are afraid of the absence of the consequence. And this perpetual relationship continues until death. On a global scale, it is the ridiculous, baseless fear of losing control of our land that prompts the belief in anti-immigration, even when we know that immigrants are harmless. And it is fear of losing control that has prompted every single conflict that mankind has experienced from the beginning of history. Now, this conclusion culminates in the following questions. Well, why do we impose fear upon ourselves? And if we can control our fears, then why aren't we fearless already? The solution is simple, but to understand it, you need to realize that the only reason we have fear is because we hold expectations. Every action that we take is because we desire a certain response. We have a certain intention or expectation from a certain situation or entity. And fear is nothing but the discomfort we experience when we restlessly entertain the thought that, oh no, my experience will contrast from my expectations. My perception will contrast from our hopes. How can we solve this? It's very simple. Let's take our initial example of public speaking. If we begin our speech with the thought that we will receive a standing ovation, everyone will cheer for us, we'll be invited to speak at the White House, then we'll constantly get anxiety attacks until the delivery, and even during the delivery itself, we may even forget parts of our speech. But what if we have incredibly low or very, very shallow expectations? And well, will we truly be satisfied with ourselves when we accomplish nothing because of those? when we seize our entire personal development, although our shallow expectations will be met, it is not our true selves that we are portraying on the stage. And so, like Goldilocks, we find peace and bliss in the middle ground. Shift your attention from the expectations in the future to the action that you're doing in the present. Because when you shift your attention to what you're doing, you are encouraging yourself to act in the best manner possible, so that you are working to achieve a glorious action and not working to achieve a mere token for that action. And the personality that is developed from such an experience is not hindered by the constant worry that, oh no, my expectations will not be met. No, the key of fearlessness has unlocked your true identity, and your creative processes are unlimited. So what the simple essence of this understanding is that sometimes the problem doesn't lie within your peers or your surroundings, but within you yourself. Now imagine a day, maybe even tomorrow, where you wake up and everyone in the world, including you, is fearless. Imagine a world where people of different backgrounds, faiths, ethnicities, ages, genders, sexual orientations can all unreluctantly smile at each other and engage in heart-to-heart conversations without feeling threatened, distant, discriminated against, or targeted. Imagine a world where everyone is given equal opportunities and benefits, where governments enact laws to build bridges, not build walls, where law enforcement targets crime, not race, and where diplomats and cooperative summits are exchanged between nations, not ballistic missiles. Imagine a world where we produce more than what we consume and where we give more than what we take. Imagine a world without fear. Imagine you without fear. Thank you.